Well, good morning. You are now listening to Prepper Talk Radio on K-Talk AM 630. And today we're going to be talking about some pretty deep stuff.
Pretty heavy topics.
Pretty heavy.
Yes.
Wanted to start off, though, with a big thank you to Mills Crenshaw. For those of you just tuning in, he has the news that we have thus far is confirmed from a family source that he did pass away last night. It is looking like it was a heart attack, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm grateful to him because he is actually why our show is here.
Spent a lot of time with him, didn't you?
We did, between he and I did 21 interviews with K-Talk before we launched PrepperCon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as we were launching PrepperCon, and the unique thing about that is the station management was like, wow, we should do a show on prepping and you should do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, I need to bring Shane. And so that's how we started our show. So little known fact, I mean, we would not be here if it weren't for the connection with Mills Crenshaw getting us on air here at K-Talk. And K-Talk, ironically enough, has been one of our best marketing platforms for our event. You listeners are amazing. You guys are very responsive, very engaged, and we thank you for being part of this show, being part of the station, and being part of the station family. So I want to give a shout out to Mills Crenshaw. Thank you for all you've done for the station, for the news, for reporting the truth, and just for being a good guy.
Amen to that.
So you are now listening to Prepper Talk Radio. This is Scott, Mr. PrepperCon, and Shane, as always, the prepared guy.
And I'm definitely behind on my blogging. Busy time of year.
It's
but
pretty
hopefully
crazy.
Catch up here this week, next week, and things will slow down, hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, I want to say thank you to Survival Medical. They're our show sponsor, and this show would not be possible without them. They help cover the cost to keep the show afloat and keep the show going and keep the lights on. You know, keep management happy and
keep it a little warm here in the studio.
Keeping us here. You know, it's a fun cold day out there, and it's nice and warm and toasty in here thanks to Survival Medical. So here's what I want you to think about. If you have been planning for emergencies, if you've been planning for scenarios, I don't care really what your scenarios are. If you have failed to get your first aid really squared away, you've ultimately not just failed yourself, but you failed your whole family. Take some time right now, go to survival-medical.com, check out their website. They've got kits that can just slide into any car pretty simply. You throw them into any backpack. But their Alpha and Bravo kits, I think, are their best kits because it has things like a bleeder kit. Say you have a gunshot wound, the bleeder kit has things specific to that. They've got Celox. They've got things that'll clot quickly. They've got things for lacerations, things to close up wounds. I mean,
we talk a lot about priorities here on the show of the survival rules of 3 and so forth. One of the survival rules of first aid is, bleeding, airway bleeding, circulation.
Yeah. So
bleeding is something you should really concentrate on learning on how to control bleeding, especially if there's a large injury, a major injury, whether you have an amputation or cut an artery or. That's very serious, and you should know how to do that instinctively, how to take care of that. So having the right supplies is just the start.
Absolutely. And that speaks into where we're going is supplies are great. Awareness is really what we're going to be talking about today. Like, what are the biggest threats that we face as a society? What are the biggest threats we face individually as preppers? If you look at what's going on in the world and what the predictions have been and what the reports are, I've looked at the human threats, the non-human threats, and the human threats are absolutely bigger.
Yeah. And the human-caused threats.
Well, yeah,
really
that's really what it is. I mean, for example, cyber attacks. Nuclear weapons.
Well, I think the fact is that the threats are increasing, especially to those of us who call ourselves preppers or want to be self-reliant and express ourselves that way. That hey, I want to be free. You leave me alone. We are the ones who are getting squeezed on and increased regulations and all that kind of stuff that decreases our freedom and
Well,
and
for
it
example,
gives us more to prep. I mean,
Yeah.
gives us more reasons to prep.
for example, most counties don't allow you to camp on your own land for more than a set period of
Yep.
days. There's a county in Utah that will not allow you to camp for more than 100 days annually on your own property. Are
What's
you
up with that?
kidding me?
Wait,
It's my own
it's your own
property.
property.
Why do you have a say as to what I do or don't do, especially regarding camping? It's a
Yeah.
tent. For
And-
goodness sake, it's not in the city limits. It's out in the mountains. You know, there's most of the state of Florida is you're not allowed to go completely off grid, unless
makes
you've
no
already been
sense
off
whatsoever.
grid for a long time. You can't go off grid. There's so much cronyism that has actually caused major problems economically for us that we're not paying attention to.
And fascism. I mean,
And,
it's
yeah.
big business that's really controlling. And so I guess our discussion today is to try and help you recognize what those biggest concerns are. I mean, the heavy topics. The
Heavy topics.
one thing we'd really try to focus on here is the things that are everyday, the everyday concerns, the everyday potential small emergencies
Mhm.
that we can be ready for very easily.
And we spend most of our time
Mhm.
talking about those.
Yep.
But we don't spend enough time, I think, talking about the heavy things that we're going to talk to you about today. I know it's the week before Christmas. You want to think about rainbows and
You're
candy canes and
thinking about
lollipops and elves and
Thinking about your long weekend.
then that toilet's ginormous and go watch your movie Elf and have a good time. But we also need to be thinking about the reality of our situation. You know, never before have we had this much going on in the world in the amount of chaos.
And hopefully you have the time this weekend to contemplate and sit and think and I know it's really tough to comprehend the magnitude of everything that's going on around us.
Yeah.
Especially if we're in our own little bubbles, and we are. We're all in our own little bubbles.
Absolutely.
I love my little bubble. You know, I'm safe. I'm comfortable. I don't like to necessarily go out of that bubble.
Wait a minute. Are you a millennial? Are you running for your safe space right now? Is that what this is? Is this
No,
an announcement?
no. What I'm trying.
I'll let you finish.
What I'm trying to, you know, we all have our comfort zones. I mean, and I like to get out of that comfort zone occasionally, but most of the time, and to be completely frank and honest, I like my comfort zone.
We all do. That's
Exactly.
human nature.
But we do need to reach out there and open our eyes and maybe get a little freaked out occasionally, a little scared.
Absolutely. So that's what this show's going to be about.
But we don't want to live by fear. We don't want to have fear to rule our lives.
Exactly.
And so it's a really fine balance. You know, we are going to try and do that for you. So don't necessarily bury yourselves into the bad news. We'll do that for you, and we'll just give you the little highlights. And that's all I like to do.
Absolutely.
If we dig in too deep, yeah, it can be overwhelming and depressing. But
So-
if you're aware, then that's important.
And we want your feedback as well. If there's certain things that you think, wow, this is the biggest issue we're really facing, feel free to give us a call. We'd like to hear your feedback at 801-254-5855. Don't forget to check out the new website and download our app, ktalkmedia.com. You can stream us from anywhere, from your desktop computer to your Apple, your Android, or even your Windows or other smartphones.
And if you don't want to call in and ask us a question, feel free to send us a message on Facebook or any of the social media, and we're
Yeah,
happy
go to KTalk Utah.
Yeah, or
Facebook.
KTalk Utah, and ask us a question, and we'll get to those questions one of these days.
We're watching the feed right now. Actually, I just
Okay,
pulled it
cool.
up. So, okay, here's one of the things that I've read a lot about lately that I just don't think people are paying attention to. The beginning of the year, the defense secretary talked about cyber attacks,
Mm-hmm.
and in March there was a report that came out that this is the biggest number of cyber attacks we've
true.
ever had as a nation thus far. And that's in March. The trajectory was that it would surpass last year's numbers by the middle of the summer. So that to me shows how dangerous the digital world is becoming. We've heard about different banks having issues, especially different markets all over the world having issues, and those are all results of cyber attacks. Information being hacked. I had my credit card information was hacked. My information got out. My credit card company called me like, we're issuing a new card. We want you to change your passwords, change all your logins. And I'm like, what the crap?
And we hope to talk to you today about what we can each do to minimize these risks, minimize the danger to us from all these different large catastrophic events that could potentially happen. So, and they're very simple. They really are. They're very simple. Um, maybe painful, but simple.
Yeah, I think one of the simplest things is the eggs in the basket, subscription. Don't subscribe to the theory that you can put all of your eggs in one basket. And what I mean by that is when it comes to digital security, multiple logins, multiple passwords. Don't use the same login or the same password for more than one platform. Change it up. Make sure it's different everywhere. It's harder to remember, I understand. But it's harder to hack. You're more secure by doing that. And make sure you're changing them frequently. By frequently, I'm not saying like every week. I'm typically around 6 months is what I've read is the key time to refresh those. And typically, if one of my logins gets bumped or if I feel like is insecure for some reason, it's time to go through and change everything. I change all my passwords at that time and make sure that they're good to go. But there was a time where I think all of us and many of us still falsely believe this, that I can use one login with one password for everything, and we're finding that that's not safe. It's really simple to be a little more secure, but cyber attacks are huge.
And so I guess the largest concern for us is financial when it comes to a cyber attack. So making sure that, personally, I like cash. But we all need to have some credit, some debit cards. So my personal strategy is just to keep just enough in there to satisfy the monthly bills. And so if I do have an issue, then it's going to be minimal.
Yeah,
it's not going to impact me as much as it could otherwise if I had a lot.
Yeah, you're diversified.
Account.
You've got
eggs in basket.
Eggs in different baskets. I'm very much the same way. I've got food storage, which I think is a very valuable tradable commodity. I've got ammunition, very valuable traded commodity. And as scarcity increases for either of those, the value goes up big time. Same thing with silver and with gold. But at certain points, every one of those items could become useless. I mean, the food, it's harder for that to become useless because we'd all have to be gone, and it'd have to still be here for it to become useless.
So that's at the top of the chain, the highest hierarchy of commodities that you should have.
Do you remember Maslow's theory?
Yes, but
the hierarchy of needs.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, like the number one need is shelter, actually, which is kind of interesting. And then it works down into food, and then it works down into love and comfort and embrace. I mean, I don't remember it all verbatim, but I just remember studying that in college, and I was just like, wow, that reminds me a lot about the survival rules.
List.
Money's like the last, but what's funny is that there's other things before it that you need the money for. Especially in our current society. So if the money stops, everything comes crashing down, as we are led to believe. But in reality, the hierarchy of actual needs can completely go on.
Actual needs
can completely go on and bypass what we've been taught by mainstream media and mostly by consumer-driven markets.
By
have to have this. I need this. Oh man, did you see the new toy? I got to get it for my kid. Well, like the Nintendo NES, that they're coming back with a 30-game console. Have you seen this?
I haven't.
I saw this the other day. This is how ridiculous the consumer need-driven economy situation is, and buying power, swaying power of the market is. So this thing came out. It's like $49. I'm seeing it online all over the place for $180, $250, because you just can't find it anywhere. It's like back when Tickle Me Elmo came out.
That's true.
I mean, it's Christmas time, so we can talk about these things. Cabbage Patch Girls. I remember my mom going to the store to pick one up for my sister when those first came out, and she saw women fighting over a freaking doll. And what we want to remind you people is and us included, is that's a doll. That's not your child's next meal.
No.
Right? And so when the crap does hit the fan, or as we were told the other day, as the feces hits the vertical oscillator.
Yeah, I like that.
When that happens, you're going to see people change at the snap of a finger. You're going to see people who seemed somewhat okay, all of a sudden off their rocker.
Yeah, and that's on our short list. I think social chaos or civil unrest.
Civil unrest. I think it falls. There's three categories. I think it falls into social unrest, civil unrest, civil war.
Just
Because that's
division.
really how it's going to start. Division.
Just division, societal division in general.
Hey, we're going to be right back. We're getting pushed into a break, but I want to remind you we're brought to you by survival-medical.com. Tougher than nature, and it's actually what I carry in my car and what Shane carries in his car and our bags.
Yes,
and
sir.
It's the gear that'll get you there. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Well, welcome back from the break. You're listening to Prepper Talk Radio here on ktalkmedia.com. Check out the website while you're at it. Download our app and start streaming live every day. You can access our archive online as well, which is awesome. Lots of cool tips and tricks we've left in the past.
Don't forget our YouTube channels and Facebook pages and all that fun stuff.
So, speaking of tips, before we get back into
Yes.
the depths of our discussion today.
Depths of despair.
No, not despair. What do you?
No, I'm not despairing. No, I'm prepared.
Now all I can think of is the pit of despair. Thank you. That's
the pit of despair.
Well, you're in the pit of despair. Don't even think of trying to
Prepper
escape.
Prepper tips. So one that I had for you real quick here. With this cold weather, there's one thing that you can do that's really quick and easy that will, if you're out in the cold, this makes a world of difference. It is a baklava. Do you know what a baklava is?
A baklava is a square cloth, right? No.
It is a hood, kind of like a hat, but it is with a mask, and it covers your neck. So it's basically kind of like a ski mask.
Oh, it's a criminal mask
It's
for when I want to go rob a
kinda
bank.
Like, it doesn't have an opening for a mouth. It just has opening for glasses.
For the eyes.
So like for skiing, you can
Okay.
wear your goggles. And it's a hood. It covers your face. It covers your chin. It covers your neck. And when it's cold outside and you got a little bit of wind or you got a big breeze, this makes a world of difference.
This is making more sense. I've actually thought that was baklava every
Right,
time I
that's
read
right.
it.
I
and
didn't
so
wanna say
I
baklava,
started thinking Greek every
that's-
time I read that. But yeah, now that I'm...
That's
now-
right. You got the Greek.
I had one of these when I was a kid.
So yeah, baklava. So I recommend, you can get it for just a few bucks. Whether it's just a thin polypropylene or a nice thicker kind of fleece one, they help out a lot when you're spending some time outside.
So here's mine. I love this every winter is I will go get 2 packs of the hand warmers.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say packs, I mean 2 20-count packs.
Right, big ones.
Foot warmers, hand warmers. I keep them in the car. 2 reasons. One is they're great for me for survival, but 2, as you're seeing people out and about that are, homeless,
Mhm.
they're great people to hand those off to. And you're giving them a few bucks, but it's a lot of warmth at the end of the day.
Mhm.
They get 8 to 12 hours of warmth out of those things, and that changes their life.
I really live by the, I guess I have a bit of a scarcity complex. Whenever I get something like that is a one-time use and it goes away, I just end up not using them unless I absolutely have to, and then they expire.
And they're easy to
Throw 'em
replace. I mean, they're easy
They
to
are,
replace.
but I just have that
So-
scarcity mentality. I don't like to
And if you're like
Use those.
Eric, who's our station
Santa today.
director of marketing, and you're wearing your Santa hat today, that's perfect because then you can go give away your kindness
Got a
in
nice
the form
beard
of
going on
hand
too,
warmers and
looking
foot
good.
warmers as you're driving around this afternoon. It's snowing out there. It's cold. It's crazy.
At least it's warmer than it was a few days
2 weeks ago? Well, a week and a half ago?
Well, just a few days ago, it was 9 degrees when I got outside, and now it's toasty. It's in the upper 20s, lower 30s, so it's nice.
Yikes. Okay, so next major threat.
Next major threat, which I think is our main concern that we should be concerned about every single day and making progress on every single day, is financial collapse, economic collapse.
That's a huge one.
It is huge, and it's so complex. There's so many different avenues and aspects of it that we can discuss for hours. But the main idea is that our financial system is so delicate and so propped up and so bubbly and such big
So
bubbles
inflated.
in every single aspect of it that it requires continual propping up by the central banks, by the Fed, by like I say, central banks and governments all
Yeah.
around the world.
Well, they're not allowing it to recycle and reset.
That's right.
One of the things that I've noticed is the different things that can actually cause a major crash, if you will. Number one, I think that could cause a huge financial problem for us is the oil markets.
Okay.
Right now, it's pretty affordable. It's what, like $30-35 a barrel?
50.
50 bucks?
52,
Has
I
it gone
think,
up
today.
to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the last few months, it's gone down
Yep.
pretty low.
Yep.
But it's been over 100 in the last decade.
Yeah.
Right? So if that were to jump, that could wipe out people's bank accounts pretty quickly because they're having to keep up with the rising cost of oil,
Mhm.
right? Other things, a cyber attack,
Mhm.
wiping out.
Oh yeah,
If someone attacked specific banks,
Mhm.
anyone that had money in those banks
Yeah.
is gone.
and they're so fragile right now that. And the thing is, especially with the financial collapse or economic collapse, to look out for are black swans. A black swan is an particularly unknown event,
Yep.
And can't necessarily be predicted. Things that we just can't foresee. One of those items was that India, they took away their two largest bills out of circulation,
Yeah.
and that was, I think maybe a few people saw that coming, but overall, nobody saw this coming, and that was a true black swan. And the impact that it's having to that country right now, it could very well circle around the globe. It's intense.
And that's the scary thing is we are all connected. Every
Yes.
economy is connected to every other nation. Venezuela's had a really rough go at it this year.
hmm
We're not that far off from where they are.
And the truth is that we have more debt than Venezuela does, so we potentially could be worse off than Venezuela at that point. But economic collapse is. Oh yeah, Eric, join us, please.
Eric loves this conversation,
Yes,
loves
he
this
does.
topic, so we're going to bring him in and get him talking.
Put your
Your
seat
mic
here.
is on.
Is this on?
It is
Turn
on.
them up a little bit more.
It's on. I don't have headphones, so I can't tell. But
No, you're good. Okay, there you go.
no, I used to work in banking and finance, and
That's
that was
right.
actually the reason I got into radio, was to try and help people protect against this kind of thing. And it is a big concern. But I just wanted to add, there's a guy by the name of Brandon Smith. He's got a website, Alt Market.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, you've told me about
Mhm.
him.
Excuse me. And so he had correctly predicted the Brexit exit.
Mhm.
He correctly predicted Trump would get in. And even in the alternative media, a lot of people were saying, well, Brexit, yeah, it might be a popular vote. People are tired of, the continuous globalist kind of merger of governments that are going on. And even if they have a popular vote, they'll rig the election and it won't pass. They would never allow that to happen. But yet it happened.
Yeah.
He said that actually is part of the plan, along with Trump getting in, is actually part of the plan, because his argument is that the economic situation with debt and all the things that are coming, the banking system is so fragile that they can't prevent it from falling apart forever, indefinitely. So they need a scapegoat.
Yep.
And that's why they're allowing this populism,
Mm-hmm.
this anti-globalism, conservative kind of movement that's sweeping Europe and the U.S. They're allowing it to kind of take power, his argument is. And then that way, once everything's in place and under the Trump watch, that's when you're going to start seeing the economic collapse.
And that's
But-
when everyone says, well,
Exactly.
this is what caused it, is these
Right.
movements.
Right. And they'll say,
Right.
oh, well, the nationalism, the populism, that's what causes the
Capitalism,
problem.
that's the problem.
And
yeah.
then it'll swing back into global currency, global government, 5-10 years down the road.
And
And
I
they'll-
think there's only two scenarios. The one that you proposed there, and if Trump truly is a capitalist, I mean, if he's not a globalist, then yeah, we're in trouble. But if he is, we're in trouble. So I think either way, we need to be prepared for what's going to happen financially. I mean, there's a lot of other concerns which we probably won't have time to get to.
And
But-
something else about economic collapse, and it's not going to be I don't think there is going to be a big sudden.
Big crash.
It's going to be a process of collapse. It's going to
It'll
be
be dominoes.
systematic.
We'll be watching things fall out
Bit
all the
by
way down to
bit,
zero.
bit by bit, things are going to start to fall apart. So this isn't going to be sudden. But Utah, this is why I moved to this state, is by far going to be one of the last dominoes. So
Yep.
if you live in Utah, yeah, this is the place to be in the continental U.S.,
And
in
I
my
think
opinion.
we need to understand that most of us really have no idea what's going on behind the closed doors. We have no idea what is being planned for us because we don't obviously control the money. And we know that Lord Maxim Rothschild said back in his day that I don't care who makes the law, just let me control the money. And that's really what it comes down to, is someone else is controlling the money, and there's a plan. But we can make steps to protect ourselves.
So did you say the one that makes the laws controls the money? Is that what you just
Whoever
said?
controls the money, he cares not
Okay.
who makes
Yeah,
the laws.
I was like,
yeah, I
I'm
probably
like,
said
it's
it
backwards
wrong,
from
but
that. Yeah. Whoever has the money control is the one that controls.
it doesn't matter what
the law.
laws there are.
I mean,
as long
yeah,
as you control the money.
that's the control mechanism. That's where we've fallen as a society, as a globe, as a world, as a species. Is we've valued this piece of paper so much that we've given away our rights to have the security of that piece of paper, right?
We've given away our
And
freedoms for security. And I think if we break this down into smaller topics, we need to talk about deflation, we need to talk about inflation, hyperinflation, we need to talk about this potential QE4, other stimulus. We need to talk about the bond market. We need to talk about...
Well, we can go into those, but the thing that we're missing out is the reality of our reaction.
Okay.
The public, how that they're going to respond to the decline and fall of the banking system, of the dollar, of monetary unit that we all seem to chase after every day.
Which seems impossible right now because it's going through the roof.
If no money's coming in, are you going to keep going to work? No.
No way.
Now take that the next step. If no money's in, are the first responders going to keep going to work? Is there still going to be law and order?
Hospitals, police.
Are they still going to go to work if there's no money coming in?
Well, that's why I say it's a process. So how this would happen, if you look at, for example, what was the African country that had the hyperinflation recently? Zimbabwe. What was happening there was the public people, the police officers and stuff, they were getting 500% increases in their salary while everybody else was not.
So it'll be managed.
So they'll try to keep the first responders in place.
Right.
And they will suddenly become much more wealthy compared to people in the private sector if something like that happens.
And that's another means of control. If you want a good job, go get a government job, right?
Well, I always say, just to kind of wrap it up in a real simple thing, there's two ways you can look at storing your wealth. You can invest in promises to pay you wealth, or you can invest in tangible, real wealth. And that's what the whole prepping world is about. It's real wealth. It's owning land outright. It's owning the means to produce food outright. That's real wealth.
Yeah, no debt whatsoever.
It's
The
controlling your
IOU
input.
wealth is what is you do not want. Right?
Yeah.
That's
Which
To the
is
degree
interesting
you can
because
avoid
that's
it.
where the entire stock market's moving. I mean, everything is hedge funds, everything's speculation. You can speculate all day long, but guess what? This bucket of food I can eat tomorrow. I don't have to speculate. I can eat it tomorrow, or I can save it for the next day.
And everything is in a bubble. Debt is in a bubble. Countries can hardly even pay the interest on their debt, and interest rates are rising. Not just because the Fed says they are, because they are. The market is driving them higher, and that's just the way economic Mother Nature works.
Well, let's look at Greece as an example. I've got family out there that we were going to go visit them, and we had to cancel because my wife's pregnancy. We were a little worried that with her health situation that it'd be hard to travel all the way over there. She has a hard enough time driving 30 minutes. So I'm like, let's hold off and do this after the kid's born. But it's interesting because, so we're going to go see her cousins and her aunt and uncle. The 3 kids that they have, none of those 3 kids are married. One of them's living at home and is unemployed, can't find a job. Another one is living at home, but he's working part-time because that's the only job available in their whole city that he can get. And their daughter, she's living in another city, and she's got a full-time job, but it requires her to go on a cruise ship, and she's gone for almost 8 months out of the year. That's her job. And so she'll work 14 days straight on these cruise ships and then come home and get 2 days off. And then she'll go back out. And that's her life, basically. Those are the options, right? Well, how is it going to look for us as those options narrow down? If we're not self-reliant, if we're not growing our own food, if we're not responsible for our own production, and we're continually responsible or continue putting that responsibility on other entities, like I'm buying all my clothes from China, or I'm buying all my stuff from Indonesia. As long as we're continually doing that, we are propping everything up against ourselves.
We need to get ourselves out of the matrix. We need to become more self-sufficient. We need to take our money out of the banks. We need to. There's so much we can do.
I don't think you need to take all of your money out of the banks.
No, I didn't. Yeah, not all.
Yeah,
but you need
I think you need to
Just don't be
diversify your
dependent on
holdings.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Just don't be
diversify your
dependent.
holdings. I love self-directed IRAs where you're allowed to invest money into real property, into gold and silver, and you get to manage it yourself.
And
I
by the
think-
way, AccuPlan, one of our sponsors,
And you can hold it yourself.
they're incredible. It's just a couple $100 for fees for that. I mean, it's not like an investor,
Mhm.
investment management, who gets a
takes
percentage of
1%.
your
And he wants to
2%
keep turning it over, so he
assets
makes
under
more and more
management. They
commissions.
don't work that way. It's
Yeah.
just a fee.
Mhm.
And that way, if you want to trade your gold and silver, or if you want to trade your real property, I mean, you can.
Or
But
business.
you get to hold
Mhm.
it. It's your holdings. You're
Mhm.
It's a
it's
tangible
not
asset.
in
It's
some
not
building off in the
something that'll
distance that
disappear.
may or may not exist.
Not only that, but when they report what is in your IRA to the government, because they have to with regulations, they don't report what is physically in it. So if you have precious metals in there and you have $50,000 in a self-directed IRA,
Mhm.
the government knows you have 50,000. They don't know it's
I don't know
precious
exactly what it
metals.
is.
That's awesome. So give us the website again.
Accuplan.com.
ACU.
ACCUPLAN.
So if you want to try to protect yourself from a financial collapse, diversification, you can move your 401k, your IRAs, get them over to this program. The big key thing, though, is there is going to be a financial collapse. It is inevitable. The dominoes are ready to fall. The problem we have is how people are going to respond to it. If you're not preparing now, you're going to be part of the problem. I've seen it thousands and thousands of times on social media where people talk about the rainbows and gumdrops of survival after a devastation. Well, I'll just help my neighbors, and if someone is hungry, we'll let them in, and I'll just if my kids are starving, I'll go to my neighbor's house and they'll give me what I need.
It's not real.
Well, okay, I'm being very facetious. The reality is if they're starving, people are telling me on social media, if I've got a problem and I can't solve it, I'm coming to your house. And this is the mindset of many Americans. If I can't take care of myself, I'm going to take it from someone that hasn't. And that is a moral decay of society. And we're running out of time here, but we're going to come back after the break and talk about some of the other things to be preparing for, and the big things to watch out for, and
form networks
But
of like-minded people.
basically, here's the basic. There's going to be blood in the streets. You need to be doing everything you can to be better prepared and better equipped for that. And that's why we have our sponsor, Survival Medical. They can mop up the blood before it bleeds.
Put a bandage on it.
Online at ktalkmedia.com.
Welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio, brought to you by survival-medical.com. Check them out. They're actually growing. It's pretty impressive to see where these products are going. But the kits that I carry are survival medical kits. And that's because they are intuitive, they're easy to use, and they have a 20-year shelf life. Or up to 20-year shelf life. I want to make sure I say that right. And their founder is a pretty awesome guy. So
Yes,
I
check it
talked
out,
to John yesterday.
survival-medical.com.
He's a good guy.
Great guy.
Yeah, we were texting late last night. He needed my advice. I gave him some good advice.
Awesome. So we're talking about the disasters and the things that you need to really be preparing for and anticipating that seem to get, we seem to not talk about as often because they're more the doomy and gloomy kinds of things. We've talked about financial collapse for a little bit. We've talked about cyber attacks. Some of the other big things that even our government's saying you need to be prepared for are EMP, nuclear attack, and pandemic. And as I've studied all over the world to see, who else is saying worry about these, China's saying worry about these, Russia's saying worry about these, India is saying worry about these. Most of the countries in the UK, in Europe, I mean, they're all saying very much the same things. Those are three of the biggest things to worry about. And I've got a friend I was actually talking to just the other day, and she's like, I need to build a Faraday cage. And a Faraday cage basically the theory is that it's going to protect your electronics from that EMP blast and allow them to continue to work afterwards.
So my cell phone will still work.
For
But the tower
a
will
short
be
period of
fried.
time.
The phone will work. The towers won't.
So if the
but-
tower survives, which a lot of the towers are actually hardened to survive, however, their power supply will be gone. Because most towers only have a 48-hour power supply, the backup battery.
If they obviously have solar, then it's going to last a little bit longer. The solar backup.
Possibly. Will it really work?
Exactly.
I don't know.
really
Who knows? But all of your electronic devices that have your your Kindle, your books, and everything you want to carry with you, there you go. That's one way to preserve that. Your ham radios. You don't need those cell towers. Put those in a Faraday cage. One of the simplest Faraday cages you can get is just put everything in a microwave. Get
Or in your oven.
Or in your oven.
Your oven works well, but you do have to put something in there to insulate
Yep.
like a piece of cardboard or something. You put your stuff on the cardboard or something else that'll insulate it from the metal of the oven.
Yeah.
Excellent Faraday cage.
Bubble wrap doesn't
Really?
work
Yeah.
quite well enough. I would put your bubble wrap in and then put your cardboard.
Right.
That gives you a little bit better layer.
Pull the floor mats out of your car, throw them in there, and
Yeah,
stick them on your floor mats.
Those are great. Yeah. There's so many things you can use. It just has to have that layer of separation. You can take a tin can, a garbage can
Mm-hmm.
with a lid, and turn that into a Faraday cage.
Line it with something like
Cardboard.
cardboard.
Cardboard's
Yep.
amazing. You can use it so many different ways.
The critical point is the opening, wherever the opening is. When it's closed, it has to be metal
Complete seal.
touching all the way around. So like an oven has a metal, a kind of a metallic gasket, which acts as that conductor. A microwave doesn't have that, but it could still potentially
But the entire microwave is designed to shield against
a particular wavelength.
particular wavelength.
So-
However, I was talking to not Shield Safety. That's a first aid company. That doesn't matter.
Talking to Cash.
I was talking to Cash,
Yep.
and he was talking about the benefits of microwaves, especially the older microwaves.
Mhm.
Anything 1980s and older is absolutely the best
Okay.
for EMP. Anything that you find that's basically 94 and newer isn't as effective because they've got more glass component and more non-insulating containment issues. But the older the better. So junkyard it like crazy. Go to the old house that's about to get flipped and say, hey, can I have the microwave?
So
There's
an
a
old
good way to
metal
go.
ammo can is not necessarily the best Faraday cage, unless
I've been
you make some
told
steps.
yes if you ground it.
Well, yeah, if you take the rubber gasket out. So that
We
the,
just had a caller that I missed. Hey, call
Yeah.
back. Let's get you back in here. But I mean, there's different things you can use. I mean, there's simple ways you can do it. I like the little Faraday bags. Those are great for my
Mhm.
small electronics. But then I don't feel 100% safe with those, so then I put those in another
In another
Faraday
cage, yeah.
cage, just in case. I like redundancy. But there's so many things that can happen. If an EMP hits or a nuke goes off, actually, I'm going to pause there and we're going to bring this caller in. Hey, thanks for calling back. You're on K-Talk. You're live. Well, thanks for joining us on the show. What's your name and what's your topic?
Well, I feel like I'm half dead, but anyway, yeah, would tin foil work if you put 2 or 3 layers and then then overlapped it big time on the joints and duct taped it?
if you have something insulating your device from the tinfoil.
So you need an insulation device on the inside, and then you have your tinfoil on the outside of that insulation and your device in the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you could probably ground it with like paper clips or something, or and put bubble wrap between the tinfoil and the object you're insulating. I guess I don't know.
If you have enough layers of bubble wrap, I guess I would use something more dense. Cardboard's fairly dense, or something that's rubber, or even wrap it in clothes and then something cloth to have that layer of separation from the metallic.
If we have an EMP, it'll probably take the satellites out, so the cell phones
Yep.
probably won't work anyway. So.
Yeah, but you want to
Absolutely.
keep your flashlights, you want to keep your ham radios, you want to keep your communication, your FRS radios, those types of things.
Your
that are,
charge controllers and
Yeah.
your battery backup systems, you want to have those protected so that
Hey,
afterwards you can
you could use these little intense LED flashlights that
Yep.
have a real good beam for like SOS, like
Yep.
Morse code, or
Yeah,
you could
LED
send
flashlights
smoke,
could potentially be taken out with an EMP, so make sure you protect those.
you could send smoke signals. I don't know. What are you going to do?
there's a lot of different options. Thanks so much for
hunker
your
down,
call.
Use what you do.
All right,
You hunker
bye.
down and you
So yeah,
hide
you
from
could
the world.
do smoke signals
Get in
as
a
well.
bunker.
You can also get flags, and I've got a cousin that's in the signaling corps in the National Guard, and so he's had to learn flags. He's had to learn signal mirrors.
We'll just start the Pony
Um,
Express again.
There you go. Start the Pony Express. We're gonna have to teach people how to ride ponies.
I'll
In
volunteer.
general, teach people how to handle horses. I mean, there's 2 schools of thought on what'll happen to cars. Some theories are that your car is going to be completely inert and it won't do anything. It's gone. Other theories are that most cars are going to be fine, and to get a backup pack of spark plugs and a new distributor cap and possibly a starter, and put those in a Faraday cage, backups for all those, so you just swap
Your
those out
sensitive
and you're good.
electronics, yeah.
And that school of thought also says that most cars, because they won't be affected, it may shut off the car, but then you just turn it off and start it back up and you're good to go. So we'll see.
Just get a bike.
Or we may not
Make sure
see.
you have a bike that you
Yeah.
can ride. A pedal bike, not a motorcycle.
I love the little fold-up collapsible
Yeah, those
bikes.
are
You
cool.
can toss those in your trunk. They're out of the way and they're easy to use. I mean, you just open it up, start pedaling.
I'll tell you one thing I think about when you guys talk about this kind of stuff is that the forest fire is a necessary component of a healthy forest, right?
Mhm.
It
Right.
overgrows with the shrub. You hear that analogy a lot, and I think that our current reliance on the way our technology is being utilized if a cyber attack hits and wipes people out in a significant way, if there's an EMP of some kind for whatever reason and it wipes things out, I think what you're going to see is people are going to respond to that with technology that will be resistant to that.
Yeah.
For example, they have data storing devices they're working on now where they etch the information into like a glass,
Yep,
and it can
I've seen
last
that.
10
10 million
10,000
years or something like that.
something, yeah. And it's still has to be made in a lab in a university right now, but pretty soon that's going to be available. Now something like
That's
that,
crazy.
seriously, I mean, you
would
could
be
save,
completely resistant to any kind of EMP.
and it can store huge amounts of information. You can have the whole entire Bible on like a centimeter square of space
I've seen that.
for
It's
10
pretty
million years or something crazy.
Let's take another caller. Hey, thanks for calling K-Talk. You're on the air.
Yes, I have a question about EMP bombs.
Yeah.
I recognize they wipe out satellites. Is there a radioactive danger to us associated with EMP bombs?
Well, it depends. So there's two schools of thought on EMP that I've read about. There's the specific EMP detonation, and then there's
Yes.
also a high-level nuke detonation. The high-level nuke detonation, obviously, that's going to have nuclear impacts on us. The fallout's going to be over a larger area, and it's going to be more dispersed, but it's still going to cause major issues. A EMP, just purely EMP bomb, has no nuclear component in it. I've heard they've called them snaps. I've also heard them call it
pinch or something.
Pinch. So there's different terms for it, but the problem is if an
There's
EMP
the
goes,
Ocean's 12 movie or whatever.
Exactly.
oh yeah, they call it a
used
pinch
one.
in Ocean's
Yeah.
12. But what the problem is if it goes off and there's a nuclear power plant anywhere in the radius of where that detonates, now we have a meltdown issue with that.
And thus
Oh,
further.
that's scary because
Yep.
it's interesting because I actually can pretty much, without satellite technology, I'm more capable of getting by with satellite technology than virtually anyone. Granted, now every employer expects you to have a cell phone now. But the nuclear, where it comes to radioactive material, defending yourself against that is a much more scary challenge.
Yes,
Oh
it
yeah.
is. Yep.
One of our good friends, thank you so much for your call. One of our good friends, Cache Valley Prepper, he and I actually had a conversation about how to protect yourself from nuclear fallout.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because you need heaps and heaps of dirt.
Mhm.
You need to be 8 feet under dirt to be okay, or behind 18 inches of solid concrete with no openings, right? That's
Not
the only
easy
way to be okay, right? Well, then you'll need rebreather systems in there, air
But
circulation.
it depends on
systems,
your
cleaning.
proximity to the explosion as well.
Right.
And fortunately, you only have to hunker down for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And
Then you have to deal with the fact that you're not going to be able to grow plants in that environment for quite a
yeah,
while.
you'll have to remove the contaminated soil and everything. And
And where do you put that?
yeah. And
In somebody else's backyard.
Yeah. Like, oh, Jerry died. Let's
Oh,
put
put
it
it
in
out-
his yard.
put it on the curb. They'll come and pick it up, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, and we kind of laugh about this, but it's going to be a stark and rude awakening for so many of us when this goes down because we don't know how to deal with it. We don't train for it. Most people don't prepare for it. There's very little you can do, especially after it happens. It's just, all right, deal with it. And I think a lot of people are going to die simply for the fact that their minds are so weak that they don't have the strength to say, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to get through this. A lot of people are going to say, screw it, I give up.
But a lot of the things that we talk about and the ways to get prepared will help you in pretty much any scenario, including global thermonuclear war. I mean, yes, it is very specific on how to prepare against radioactive fallout, but there are things you can do that will help you carry through. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
the truth. I mean,
Let's bring on this next caller.
yes.
Hey, thanks for calling K-Talk. You're on the air.
Hi. So a couple of things that might be of interest.
Yeah.
One is metal sheds.
Mm-hmm.
A metal shed grounded.
Okay.
Make you a nice little cage. I did a full-size garage, a detached garage,
Metal
all
building.
metal, roof and everything. All the metals bonded together, grounded on both sides. That should do well.
Now, here's my
transfer-
question. Do you have to have a metal floor as well, or can you get away with concrete, or what? I don't know enough about that type of a grounding solution and that type of EMP cage, but do you need that?
You actually probably know more than you think. Understand that the EMP is a magnetic wave,
Right.
High intensity magnetic field. So it's really just acting like a generator, like where you have a magnet going through a wire. You've seen that in basic science, and it induces a voltage in the wire when the magnetism crosses the wire. So really, what we're looking at is an intense magnetic field, sudden burst, which will only last for a short period.
Right.
Crossing all of the metal, the wire, the telephone wires, the house wiring, and inducing this voltage into these wires. Now, depending on the angle of the wire, will determine whether it is affected or not. Because if the wire is not perpendicular to the field, then it will not have, in whatever angle, to whatever the angle is to that, away from the degree that's necessary for maximum voltage, is to that degree will be less affected by the magnetic field. So not everything will be affected, because some things are just randomly not in position for it. But the floor doesn't matter, because the field's not coming up from the earth. The field is coming from the sky.
And the earth is an
So you're just really trying to shield yourself. Like if it's raining on you, you're just trying to shield yourself from this rain of magnetic fields. And so by grounding it, if any voltage attempts to build up, it's sucked down by the earth. In theory, I've of course never been through this, so I don't know.
Oh, come on! You've got to have personal experience. That's what we're looking for.
I have personal experience with normal magnetic fields, but I don't have experience. Well, I did go through at one time. I went through one of these superconductor facilities.
Yeah.
I was called in to do some work there, and the scientist there showed the place to me. But I had to remove all metal from my body because their magnetic field, would just rip at the metal. So you couldn't go in there with any metal on you.
Awesome. Thank you for calling. We're actually getting cut off by our commercials here.
Oh, you're running out of time.
End of the show.
Thank you so much for your input. Thank you to all of our callers for joining in today, and thank you for listening to Prepper Talk Radio here on K-Talk AM 630. Brought to you by our good friends at survival-medical.com, the only first aid kit tougher than nature, and that'll store up to 20 years.
We're going to continue this topic next week and talk about what we can expect in 2017.
The Christmas of 45.